It says we're live. Okay, I'm going to hang out for just a little bit, see if anybody logs in, and then I will get started. Lots to talk about. Um, as you log in, tell me who you are, where you're at. And I know that it says one eyeball on it, so that's probably Rob. But we got some news today, too. So. All right. Okay, so let's get to this. First, let's talk about some news. So, as we all know, September 8th is the birthday of Star Trek. And StarTrek.com has this big event. So, that's interesting. I don't know when this come up. It just started popping up that it's now counting down. So anyway, so let me, to start over, Mish, your Trek, welcome. We're going to talk about some stuff today. The first thing that I have up on the screen right now is, big thing from StarTrek.com. And then we'll talk about the episode. We'll always have Tom Paris. So, yesterday, I think, or maybe it was the other day, can't remember. Anyway, StarTrek.com announced Star Trek Day, which is basically the 8th of September. And they are doing a free streaming event. How to stream it, I really don't know. It says join Paramount fans from around the world and for a free live stream celebration of Star Trek Day on Wednesday, September 8th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So I don't know if that's going to be on the website or if it's going to be through like a free thing on Paramount Plus. I don't know. Anyway, so this thing is going to be like, I was looking at the time frames because if you go to the website, you go StarTrek.com/day, and it gives you an itinerary. And now I'm a Mac guy, so I originally brought this up on Safari. The website does not like Safari. In Chrome, I can just scroll through here like nobody's business. But if we look, it starts at 5:30. Okay, it actually has time. 5:30. And then at 5:37, we'll have Will Wheaton and Micah Burton. Not really sure who that is. And then we'll talk about Prodigy. Kind of looking forward to that, even though it's supposed to be for kids. I'm looking forward to it. At 5:45, then we're going to go Deep Space Nine at 6:03, Star Trek Discovery at 6:08. Is it going to be like, did DS9 just not like they're only going to talk about that for like a minute and a half? Let's see. Then we got Legacy Moment, Enterprise at 6:25, Strange New Worlds at 6:30, Voyager 6:50. Like we go through Lower Decks 6:55. So this is going to be like, if you scroll all the way down, they're gonna cover a ton of stuff. Let's see, this last section, Picard 7:55. So say, oh, Micah Burton is LeVar Burton's daughter. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Awesome. So we're looking at least an hour and a half. I might just have to cancel class because I actually have a class that starts at 5:30 on Wednesday. So my students do know that I'm a super Star Trek fan, and the 8th is kind of a special day. But that, I don't know, thinking live streaming, and then we can all cry together as they talk about stuff. So saw that, wanted to share it. there you go. Super excited. Even this little video that I'm not going to play because at some point I want to be monetized. Watch it. It's got some good moments in there. A little teary-eyed. So, no, I hit the wrong button. Okay, there we go. So, let's get to the episode. So let's see. Oh, class can be everyone hanging out, spending time together and watching family good time. Yes. Yes, Rob, I would agree. Maybe that's just the culture of the school. All right. So on to the episode. Oh, and another thing, just the other day, and I don't know when it was, I don't know exactly when I originally saw it, but Fandom Events had the 35th anniversary Star Trek 4 on big screen. And so I remember seeing it, and then I kind of misplaced it in my brain. And all of a sudden I saw it, and it was like, oh, it already aired one day and it was airing again. So my daughter and I actually went and caught Star Trek 4 on the big screen the other day. It was an amazing moment. I haven't seen that on the big screen in 35 years. It's just super great. So, of course, I got teary-eyed seeing and her name escapes me. I don't know why I do this. The actress that played Spock's mother in the original series, of course, she reprises her role for this, and seeing her on screen, on the big screen, even though I've seen it a million times, it was just that really heartfelt moment. But you know what? In a year of Trek, we will eventually watch Star Trek 4 and we will talk all about that movie and all the different parts that make us cry. So, all right, enough of that. To the episode. So, transparency, not my favorite episode. I mean, it was good. There were some good moments in it. But it just wasn't one of those that I was just like, wow, this is really, really great. So, the episode is entitled, We'll Always Have Tom Paris. That is a total take on a season 1 episode of The Next Generation called We'll Always Have Paris. And that was where we meet a love interest, a past love interest of Patrick Stewart, of Picard. So you got that. Now the teaser kind of sets us up in 3 plots. So we have our what I consider the primary plot of the story. We have Tendi. Tendi was overlooked for a promotion. She's trying to prove herself. So she and Mariner go on a girls' trip. And then you have 2 secondary plots. You have Boimler, who is new back at on the ship, and he has no access to anything. Like, he can't get food, he can't get anything like that. Because they beefed up security. And then you have another secondary plot where you got Rutherford finds out that Shax is back, and they totally play on the joke that bridge crew's characters, they never die. And so they kind of play on that, which I thought that, it was okay. It was okay. Rob, almost too much happening. Felt like the storylines didn't have enough time to flesh out. I would agree. We did get, I hope that we get some kind of, because they did kind of play with the characters of Tendi and Mariner. And so we learned some new things about them, and we play on their relationship, but I hope that plays further into the show on its own. I did like, now I don't know how people feel about ketchup on hot dogs. In that first opening scene where we see Shax, and it wasn't really squirrel moment. It wasn't really a surprise that Shax was going to be back, because the actor who does his voice was in the credits from episode 1 of the season. So at some point we were going to see the character again. Anyway, so he orders a hot dog with some type of ketchup, and Mariner's like, who does ketchup? Yes, you're absolutely right. Who puts ketchup on a hot dog? Like, mustard only. I don't know. In fact, I only buy ketchup once a year, and it's only for the martial arts camp that I host every year, because some people, and I still love them, we're all family, they put ketchup on hot dogs. But that's the only time I buy it, and then it just sits in the fridge and I throw it away to buy fresh new stuff the next year, because we just don't eat it in the house. Mainly because it's kind of gross, and I just don't like ketchup on anything. Plus, your standard ketchup is just full of high fructose corn syrup, and I'm just not that kind of guy. So personally, I like that line. Mustard and onions. That's it. Absolutely. I'm not really an onion guy, but I'm totally 100% with you on the onions, or on the mushrooms. Okay. So, let's, like last episode, I want to go per plot and not just kind of bounce back and forth. I actually have much better notes this time, so it almost looks like I know what I'm doing. So if we follow the initial plot, so we have Tendi and Mariner. They go on a girls' trip to retrieve something for Dr. Tiana, and then they learn about each other, and they go on adventures. Okay, so they go to Qualar 2, and Qualar 2 showed up in The Next Generation. I can't remember, because I've only seen the series once, but was it in Picard? Was that one place that they went where all the clubs and all the fancy lights were in Picard? That's a question. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, so they go and pick up this box, and and when they get it back to the ship, they find out that it is, I had to write this down, a Cation libido post. And so they kind of played with that it was basically a sex toy that was a scratching post. But we learn that the Cations need to be intimate once a year, or they go crazy. And Tendi kind of equates it to Ponfar, so for the Vulcans, which I thought was, okay, that's interesting. Now, one thing I noticed, and I don't know if I'm looking too far into this, but when it comes to Easter eggs in this show, sometimes you have to look too much into it. So the shuttlecraft that they are flying, when it lands on Qualar 2, you notice it's called the Yosemite, and the design, the design of the ship looks like the shuttlecraft from Star Trek V. And of course, they open up Star Trek V. They're at Yosemite, and Kirk is scaling El Capitan. So I don't know. Am I reading too much into that it looks like a Star Trek V shuttle, and that's from its name. Anyway, just a little thing I picked up. Okay. Best way to scratch that itch for a feline race. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, so they get this scratching post, this libido post, and it breaks. And then they go on this adventure trying to get it fixed. And they go to, and I couldn't make out the name that Mariner first puts out. I wrote it down as Bonstal. I could be completely wrong, but then of course when they show the location, it's Starbase Earhart, which would say that it would be a callback to Amelia Earhart. And they, to raise money to get it fixed, they fight Nausicaans, or they play a game of Nausicaans. Nausicaans, believe that they're cheating, and so they fight them and they escape. Still trying to get it fixed. They delve into the Orion. They go to an Orion pirate outpost. That is kind of playing on Tendi's Orion side. So we meet Tendi's cousin. I can't remember his name. I'm sure that they said it. I didn't write it down. And we find out that she's kind of a badass, and I don't know if it's part of how the race is. I always thought that, I was always familiar with the idea that the Orion women were slave women and that the dudes were in charge. But apparently in this universe, or in this part of sect, maybe it's a different sect. Like they screwed up the Klingons with in Voyager, or not Voyager, Discovery, but that she's the shit. Like she basically kicks down her cousin, is like, do this. And he's like, oh yes, yes, yes. And he calls her mistress of the winter constellations. That's awesome. And then we also find out that her first name is Davana. Did we find that out earlier in something else when she's interacting with Rutherford? I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. Now we do learn, and this is kind of a little slide in with the humor that I noticed. Mariner is a pansexual. She will do anything because she admits that she dates bad boys, bad girls, bad gender, non-binary babes. I don't know if that works though, but I think that's funny. And then ruthless alien masterminds and bad binars. So I don't know. Is that saying that she'll do anybody or anything? I don't know. Yeah, we'll just let that leave to the imagination. So then they, as they kind of go back and forth, they have their Mariner is basically turned green by Tendi to cover her up and then the Orions find out that she's not really green, and then they fight, or not they fight, but they're trying to escape. And in fact, the way that they kind of ran across, the way they animated it, that they ran across one sky bridge type of thing, and then they ran it. It almost kind of looked like one of those Scooby-Doo where they're running away from the ghosts. It didn't go that far into it, but that was the first thing I got. They're running away and they're being chased. I just totally thought of Scooby-Doo in that. She has a type. Yes, she does have a type. So, but in this, they're learning about each other. They're bonding, and then, on their way back to the ship, because they haven't been able to get this thing fixed, and Tendi's just freaking out about it, that she's going to get fired. She's going to lose her position because she was already overlooked for something. And Mariner decides to ram the shuttle into the ship. And the animation was really funny because it goes dink and there's no damage to the big ship, but of course there's damage to the shuttlecraft. And so was that also maybe a callback to Star Trek V, where they flew the shuttle at almost full speed into the bay? I don't know. Maybe. So, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. So anyway, she blames it on a bee, that a bee got in the way. And I love the commander. He's just like, how did a bee get inside the shuttle in space? How does that happen? So that was pretty good. And then of course, Dr. Tiana didn't actually want what was inside the box. She wanted the box itself, because of course cats like like boxes, but I've never known a cat to like a wooden box. Cats are more cardboard box cats or creatures. I don't know. So there's all that going on in that plot line. Let's go over to our second plot with Boimler. Now, Boimler, he's got this whole ongoing thing with user not recognized. It starts out he can't get food. We find out that Tom Paris is on the ship, and he's super excited about that because he's got this Voyager plate collection, which I think plays into and I can't remember what company did it, or maybe if they still do. I think maybe it was Hamilton plate, because I actually have a couple of Hamilton plates, but they have, the collector plates. And so he has his Tom Paris collector plate, and he says that he has everybody from Voy. And he's just like, yeah, it's just so much easier to just call it Voy. And so, which is funny because Voy, VOY, is basically the initialism for Voyager with, so they played with that. And of course, we'll always have Tom Paris. Of course, Tom Paris is part of the show. When he's talking about, I get to meet him and he's going to be on the ship and doing all this kind of stuff, Mariner says, is he still a salamander? And of course that plays into the episode, the Voyager episode. And even though I have typed out every single Voyager episode for my book, I did not realize that was a season 2 episode. So it's Threshold, season 2, episode 15. It is labeled probably the worst Voyager episode out there, just because of writing and story. Like, I don't know. We'll definitely talk more about it when we actually watch the episode as part of a year track. But not only is it the worst episode, but they also give a ton of credit to Robert Duncan McNeil for being just a great actor in one of the worst episodes. So I find that kind of funny. So that was a call back to that. Question. And Rob, you can comment here. People who are watching this later, you can comment below. So is it just me, or I'm reading too much into this? Now, I wrote this down. If security is beefed up and Boimler has no access to doors, turbolifts, and food, okay, how then does he have access to the Jeffrey tubes? I mean, he's standing there at the turbo lift, looks over, there's an entrance into the Jeffrey tubes. He kicks it and it opens. How is that? Now, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but, and I don't know if this is an official trope, but of all, like when the Enterprise or Voyager or whatever ship is dealing with some alien race, they always seem to get into the Jeffrey tubes and mess the ship up. So I'm wondering if that's a play on that trope, that, regardless of how much access you have, you can still get into the Jeffrey tubes and mess with the ship. Because Boimler, as part of his little adventure of getting to Tom Paris, is him going through the Jeffrey tubes and into the bowels of the ship. And he eventually actually gets stuck in, he gets stuck in this little section and tries to get out and does all this different stuff. And he ends up talking to the plate, and the plate is actually Tom Paris. And he mentioned something, he says something about I'm concerned about the fumes, and then actually makes a joke that you're talking to a plate. And of course, through the fumes and all this kind of stuff, you see, his uniform top comes off and he's got this wrapped and his hair's all messy, and he finally falls out of the ceiling onto the bridge of the ship. And he's like, Tom Paris. And Tom is like, he looks at him, he says, Kazon, and then starts beating him up. Because he did kind of look like a Kazon. I thought that was entertaining. Not the best, but it was entertaining. Let's see. Rob, giant plot hole. And I asked myself the same question time and time again throughout the episode. Then in emergency, you don't need authorization per Boimler. Yes. When he's like, he was screaming because they turned on the engine and he says, user not authorized. Yeah. So moving on to our second plot, so we have our primary plot, our secondary plot, and our secondary plot. Not really a third plot, because the Boimler and the Rutherford plot kind of go together, or about the same power. So some nice call outs. Of course, Rutherford is really confused of why is Shaxs back, and everyone's just like, bridge crews never die. They just come back. Don't worry about it. And he's just like all freaked out because Shaxs in the first season died saving Rutherford's life. So he's all about trying to basically figure out what happened. And so towards the beginning, Mariner and Boimler are like, well, maybe, and I wrote all these down. He says, maybe it was a pattern buffer thing, or a restored Katra, or a mirror switcheroo. The Borg rebuilt him, a further sun from an alternate timeline. Genesis devised, and that's how he said it. Genesis devised. And then time ribbon, which Mariner's like, or he got stuck in the Nexus. And so they're like, I got stuck in the Nexus, time ribbon. It's all the same thing. Okay. Hold on a second. I got a text. Currently live doing podcast. Okay. So when we go through that, okay. So the pattern buffer thing, that was the first things that I thought about was, and I had to look up the episode name. The Next Generation it was Unnatural Selection, where God, I hated her character. Pulaski. Dr. Pulaski was getting old, and they basically saved her by putting her through a transporter pattern buffer and cleaning out the virus and all that kind of stuff. And then she survives. And then, of course, the other one that popped in my head was another Next Generation episode with Scotty, Relics, where they find his ship on a Dyson sphere, and he's in the pattern buffer, and so he survives that way. Of course, Next Generation, the Unnatural Selection, that was the second season episode, because that's the only season that, thank God, that Pulaski was part of. And Relics was a season 6 episode, I think episode 4. So Restored Katra, of course, that's Star Trek 3. A mirror switcheroo. We could probably go with any mirror episode in the series, or we could actually do the whole subplot of season 1, season 2-ish. Well, maybe it's a whole subplot of just Discovery, because season 1 was all about, they really played into that mirror. The Borg rebuilt him. Can't really pick out an episode specifically on that one. The one thing that confused me, and a further sun from an alternate timeline. I'm lost at where that connection comes from. It may just because it's been a long day and I just haven't been thinking. I just could not get that connection. Genesis devised, again, Star Trek 2 reference, and then time ribbon, of course, Star Trek Generations. Okay. Now, of course, he is trying to, he actually musters up the energy to talk to Shaxs. And of course, in the engineering, the one guy is actually, hey, wait a minute, did you die? And he totally gets the other guy. He's like, oh, Lieutenant Man or something or other. You need to report to your supervisor and get reassigned. So Rutherford is like, oh my God, I can't say anything. So then, of course, there's another scene. He's working on something. He's like, I got to focus on what I'm doing. I got to focus. And then he starts having this hallucination, and you got all these different things, versions of Shaxs coming up to him. So we see, we see a mirror version. We see all these different versions. So 2 lines that came out, like I heard mirror, mirror in the background. But towards the end, there were 2 lines that I thought, one I found interesting. It says, what's the deal with T'Pol's hair? So what's the deal with T'Pol's hair? Not sure. And then the last line in that hallucination was, in the Nexus, it's always Christmas. That I actually kind of found funny. That was a good pick, because when Picard ends up going into the Nexus, of course it's Christmas time and he's got kids and all that kind of stuff. All right. So Rob, do you have an answer for me? There was an episode of DS9 when Jake comes back from the future to save Sisko. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And actually there was another one, another DS9 episode that just popped in my head with, regarding that. And it dealt with, Molly, Molly O'Brien. She disappears into they're like on this planet, and she disappears into some thing, and she ends up coming back, I think, or maybe a version of her comes back. I don't know. But I think the Sisko thing, I think that fits that line a little bit better. So anyway, Rutherford is finally like, okay, he's like, oh, I'm just going to go ask him. I got to go ask him. And so he's like, look, so he convinces him. He's like, look, you saved my life and you're back, and I just don't know why. Please tell me. And so Shaxs says, once you know, you can't go back to being the man you were before. And he goes, okay, tell me. And of course he goes into this thing, and you see him start to get scared, and he's sweating. And he's like, oh, first there is death. And have you heard about the Black Mountain? And it kind of starts fading off from there, but it says that's where you face 3 black apparitions of yourself. I think I caught that right. I don't know. Anyway, so that's pretty much the full timelines. Now, of course, we end up back. The 3 of them are sitting outside the brig. Well, 2 of them are sitting outside the brig. Mariner is sitting inside the brig. Boimler shows up. He's got a black eye. He's really excited. He's got, he's still got his plate. Paris hasn't signed it, but he's like, yeah, I'm going to go off and we're going to have drinks. He's got his user authorization back. Rutherford, or, what is it? They're talking about, they asked Rutherford if he found out why, and he's like, oh, no. And then he starts sweating and, starts getting the shakes. So, I mean, it was a full episode, but yeah. And then of course, Klingon acid punk. There was a line when they're on Qualar 2, and it's like she's talking with the other Cation dude behind the counter, and she said, they're like, oh, I love it when they're singing above the wails of dishonored or something like that, dishonored Klingons. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw that live, and they had a whole chorus of those guys. So that was kind of cute. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there was some good call outs. There were some good, there were some entertaining Easter eggs, but it just didn't grasp me. Like, I don't know. I would have thought the whole, cause we saw the talking plate in the initial trailer. And it just ends up being this stupid search through, he's hallucinating because he's been sniffing fumes because he got stuck in a damn Jeffries tube. I don't know. It was an okay episode. Just not my favorite though. Not my favorite. So I don't know. What did you think? Put it in the comments. All right. So, there we go. That's all I have to say. I got a package today. I did a box opening. I know it's kind of stupid, but I did. It was actually, I didn't know what I was going to get, but, I had an idea and it was much better than I expected. You guys get to watch that. Okay. Rob, what does he say? If they stuck with one or even two of the storylines by themselves, it would have been better. Boimler's storyline could have been cut in the episode would have not changed. Absolutely. So like, if we look at the last couple of episodes, there were only two major plot lines. And specifically the last one, because that was kind of, I wanted just to focus on each plot line individually. So when I started that last episode, of course there were only two, but if we go back to the first one, Strange Energies, yes, that was really only two primary plots. You had your primary one and your secondary one. So yeah, that's about it. Okay. Well, next week we have another episode. It doesn't have a name yet, so I might just post. It'll go up. I'll post and then I'll just have episode number, and I might change the thumbnail later. For any of you who are watching this who are martial artists, you can check into my main channel, Sensei Mish, over on YouTube. You can also find, I've got a dojo chat. So I've got a podcast coming up Saturday, noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. And that's it for real. So, I will see you guys all later. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you on the next video.